In this video, we're looking at some of the youngest self-made billionaires in the USA under the age of 40. Now, billionaires come about their fortune in two different ways. They either inherit it or they build something from the ground up. And while there's nothing wrong with inheriting a multinational company and making it even bigger, let's be honest here, how many of us are really going to have a massive company handed over to us? That's why stories of self-made billionaires are so inspiring. Take for example, Evan Spiegel. According to Forbes, Spiegel has a net worth of around $6 billion. How did he make his money? Well, he's the founder of a little app you might be familiar with, Snapchat. However, his first business was nowhere near as successful. While still in college, he set up a website called Future Freshman, which was meant to help high school kids who wanted to apply for colleges. Unfortunately, that company was a huge failure. So, Evan started another company. While still at Stanford, together with classmates Bobby Murphy and Reggie Brown, they came up with an idea for a project named Peekaboo. What did Peekaboo do? Well, it was a disappearing photo book. Very similar to Snapchat. Now, the idea behind Peekaboo was they wanted to make sure that people's digital information was brief and non-permanent. And after creating an app for the site in 2011, Spiegel believed in the vision so much that he dropped out of Stanford only a few units short of graduation in order to work on the project full-time. And that's when he renamed it Snapchat. Within its very first year of operation, Snapchat was such a hit with users that they were sending more than 50 million snaps a day. And of course, that caught the attention of Mark Zuckerberg, who in 2013 attempted to buy the company for $3 billion. Evan rejected him. At the time, many analysts thought he was crazy for turning down the offer.
I'm not going to lie, I'm totally just, like I just said in the chat, I'm totally waiting for this thing to just go totally Groupon so I can laugh my ass off because no, this is not worth $4 billion.
There is no, they don't even have, there's no revenue.
But Evan's belief in his company was proved to be right because by 2015, 2 years after Zuckerberg's offer, Snapchat had grown to over 75 million users. In November 2016, Snap Inc. filed for a $25 billion IPO, making the then 26-year-old Evan Spiegel worth around $2.1 billion. That made him officially the youngest billionaire in the USA at the time. So how does he spend his fortune? Well, he purchased a home for $12 million from former owner Harrison Ford. It was at this home where he married supermodel Miranda Kerr in 2017. But on the outside, while it might seem like it was all smooth sailing, it wasn't. Why? Well, remember his ex-college co-founder Reggie Brown? Reggie alleged that both Evan Spiegel and fellow co-founder Bobby Murphy cut him out of the Snapchat deal right before they went public. Although both Spiegel and Murphy alleged that Brown never had equity in the company, the lawsuit was settled for $158 million. And it seems very likely that part of that settlement included a clause to remain silent because shortly after, Brown completely vanished from the public eye. And that's not the only legal battle that Snap Inc. has faced. Right before the company went public with their IPO, a former employee filed a lawsuit alleging Snapchat had falsely misrepresented its growth metrics in order to make it more attractive to investors. This, in turn, would, of course, have artificially inflated the IPO value. Unfortunately, most of the public information regarding that lawsuit was redacted, so it's pretty difficult to find out any solid and reliable information about how that legal battle actually went. The only thing we can know for sure is that the company eventually settled with investors to the tune of $187 million. But even with those controversies, Snapchat and parent company Snap Inc. continued to grow. Today they have a market cap of over $51 billion with a reported 265 million daily active users. Now, from Snapchat to Facebook, let's talk about Dustin Moskovitz. While Mark Zuckerberg might be the face of Facebook, Dustin was one of the most important men behind the scenes. That might explain why he currently has a net worth of around $12 billion. But his story isn't quite so simple. Let me explain. Dustin met Zuckerberg at Harvard, where both were housed in the same freshman dorm. After just 2 years, he dropped out and co-founded Facebook with Zuckerberg. Dustin was the first Chief Technical Officer and VP of Engineering. Now, 4 years after Facebook was created, so we're talking 2008, Dustin left the company. He walked away with 2% of share ownership. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but By 2011, such was the growth of Facebook that when he cashed out, his 2% officially made him a billionaire. At the time, aged just 27 years old, since this was before the creation of Snapchat, he was actually the youngest billionaire in the USA before Evan Spiegel. And using his riches from his Facebook sale as a seed investment, Dustin and another former Facebook colleague, Justin Rosenstein, both teamed up to create the online project management software company Asana. Today, Asana is also a public listed company valued at over $1.5 billion. That means that Dustin has now founded $2 billion plus companies, all before the age of 40. Not bad for someone most people have never even heard of before, right? Considering he was one of the main men behind one of the most popular social media sites in the world, Facebook, Dustin remains a very private person. Instead of flashy cars and huge mansions, Dustin prefers to use his money for charitable causes. Along with his wife, Kari, Dustin started the philanthropic organisation Good Ventures, where they've donated over $100 million to charitable causes worldwide. He's also committed to giving away his fortune and has signed Bill Gates and Warren Buffett's giving pledge, thereby becoming the youngest billionaire ever to commit to giving away the majority of his wealth. Now, let me ask you a question. The last time you travelled, did you book a hotel or an Airbnb? 20 years ago, that wouldn't have even been a question. Airbnb? What the heck's that? Today, however, Airbnb boasts over 150 million users with annual revenues in 2020 of $3.4 billion. One of the men behind the company is Nathan Blecharczyk. Now, alongside co-founders Joe Gebbia and Brian Chesky, Nathan founded Airbnb in 2008. He's currently the company's chief strategy officer and chairman of Airbnb China. And as with many other billionaires, Nathan started early. His first business was in high school. That was a web hosting company that unfortunately provided email services that were much used by spammers. The company was actually listed on the Registry of Known Spam Operators that compiles a list of the top spamming services. So if you ever received spam emails in the early 2000s, Nathan may have been partially to thank for that. He continued that business even during his time at Harvard, where he was pursuing a bachelor's degree in computer science. In fact, it was only closed in 2002 when he finally made enough money to pay for his tuition. Now, during Airbnb's early years, which incidentally, Airbnb was originally called Air Bed and Breakfast until they decided it needed to be shortened to a much catchier name. But in those early years, Nathan and his partners had no money and they had no outside investment. So they were forced to do some outside of the box thinking, and they embarked on some pretty unique fundraising projects. For example, in 2005, Nathan and his partners bought mass quantities of cereal and repackaged them into specifically designed boxes called Obama-O's and Captain McCain's. They then sold these boxes at the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado. This marketing ploy was so successful that it netted them over $30,000. But get this, that marketing stunt also caught the attention of legendary Silicon Valley investor Paul Graham. Now, Paul Graham is the co-founder of startup incubator Y Combinator, and Graham was so impressed that he invested $20,000 in 2009 and invited Airbnb into the Y Combinator seed funding program. By 2014, the company was valued at $10 billion. That meant the 31-year-old Nathan was himself personally worth $1.5 billion. The thing is, even though Airbnb is undoubtedly an industry disruptor, the company has had to weather its fair share of scandals, including an Airbnb guest in France finding a dead body in the garden, and a Halloween party at a California Airbnb that turned tragic and ended with 5 people dead. That's not even to mention the countless other scams that include list bait and switch, where the images shown on the site are totally different from the property that's actually being rented, or even scams involving people renting out properties they don't even own. Needless to say, these sorts of scandals didn't reflect well on the company, and they had to do a lot of scrambling in order to regain public trust in their company before their IPO in 2020. Airbnb's growth, as you'd probably expect, also stalled during the pandemic, where annual revenue went from $3.6 billion in 2018 to $4.7 billion in 2019, then declined to $3.4 billion in 2020. But even with that being said, the founders haven't fared badly. Nathan's current net worth sits at around $9.6 billion, and Airbnb as a company has a market cap of close to $100 billion. What's more, just like Dustin Moskovitz, Nathan and his co-founders have also joined the Giving Pledge. What an inspirational guy. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, you might also like some of our other videos that are on screen now. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.